Conference Roberto Gerard, Reappraising a Musical Visionary. University of Huddersfield, June 2021. Title of the paper: The Cultural Exile of Roberto Gerard, The Archive of Dodecaphonic Sketches in Valse, by Dr. Carlos Duque. Roberto Gerard is an important name in the 20th century music. He studied with teachers as Felipe Pedrell and Enrique Granados, was a direct witness in the creationship of Surrealism because was the only Spanish student of Arnold Schoenberg. He was a good friend of Joan Miró, Federico García Lorca, Paul Casal, Leonard Bernstein, Frédéric Mompou, and John Cage. Was a pioneer in electronic music in Europe. In fact, he was probably the first composers to have an electronic work on stage in Britain. He composed soundtracks for film, the most important This Sporting Life by Lindsay Anderson, and also he got important commissions from the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, BBC Orchestra, and the London Sinfonietta. And maybe the German is that Gerard grew up in a cosmopolitan and polyglot environment. His father was German Swiss and his mother from Célestat, France, which means that he was fluent speaker in Spanish, Catalan, German, and French. And this is why he could go abroad to study commerce in Lausanne when he was a child. But in fact, this first adventure became a cultural exile when he started to travel around Europe looking for the best music teachers at the time. In this table we have a list with Gerard's teachers. The first teaching was in Lausanne, where Gerard went to study commerce. His father, a wine exporter, wanted a career in business for his son, but the boy's talent and interests were in the field of music. He took lessons in harmony and counterpoint with the German composer Hugo Strauss, a local teacher. Then he moved to Munich with Reger and Courcebois, but unfortunately the outbreak of the First World War interrupted his aims. He therefore returned to Barcelona, undertaking piano lessons with one of the most important composers in Spain at that time, Enrique Granados. After Granados' death in 1916, Gerard studied composition with Felipe Pedrell between 1916 and 1921. During 1923 to 1928, Gerard studied composition with Arnold Schoenberg, first in Vienna and later in 1925 in Berlin, where Schoenberg was named director of the Akademie der Künste, in succession to Ferruccio Busoni, who had died the year before. As we can see, 71% of Gerard's teachers were from outside Spain. He went to 6 cities in 4 countries. We can see in the table the lack of continuity with his teachers. Gerard only had 2 long periods of study, one with Pedrell and another one with Schoenberg, both of 5 years. In the map, we can see how wide is the travel that Gerard did in order to look for the best teachers, and how important was for him to be a polyglot because he could travel around Europe and have a fluent communication with teachers and classmates. In order to research the manuscripts, letters and books from Gerard's cultural exile from 1913 to 1928, we have to go to the Roberto Gerard archive at the Institut d'Estudis Vallencs. This is a private cultural institution. They have a wide cultural activity with expositions, research, concerts, presentations, and with an important library that keep the archive of Roberto Gerard. This archive have had 4 donations so far. The first one was in 1987, when Ferran Gerard, nephew of Roberto, made a donation of manuscript scores, program concerts, articles, press clippings, books, magazines, photographs, and letters. This donation had a great amount of material and boxes until 1938. The second donation was in 2001, again by Ferran Gerard. There were more scores, notebooks, music exercises, letters from 1932 to 1933, magazines from 1970, and program notes. In 2008, the family from Mexico, his brother Carles, made a big donation of letters. Finally, in 2020, Ferran Gerard again made a new donation of letters. In fact, everything is catalogued, basically for the good job of the Institut d'Estudis Vallens. The access to the catalog is online and the communication with the office is fast and fluid. The cataloging work has been massive because of the amount and the diversity of items and of languages to translate. Thanks to the collaboration between the Biblioteca de Catalunya and the Institut d'Estudis Vallens, the head of the music department of the Biblioteca, Joanna Crespi, did a great research working in the general catalogue of the first donation. She managed to catalogue the main part of the archive with manuscript scores, letters, program concerts, press clippings, and more. The work of Joanna Crespi is invaluable. But there were a huge amount of material, and some of the boxes were forgotten, probably because Joanna Crespi had no time to cataloging all of them. In 2019, the Institut d'Estudis Vallens contacted to myself because they wanted to make the last cataloging to his archive. There were some boxes with scores from different times and with number written in the scores. I went to the Institut d'Estudis Vallens twice in the summer of 2019. As a result of the work, and after more than 2,000 photographs, the catalogue of this material is like this. Box number 1, Serialism, box number 2, General Works, box number 3, Unfinished Works, and box number 4, Exercises. From these boxes, the most interesting is obviously box number 1, because we have a great collection of dodecaphonic sketches and scores. The box number 1 is box number 16 in the general catalogue at Institut d'Estudis Vallens and has 13 folders named 1. Sevillana in draft, 2. Pasacallas in draft and series, 3. La Calandria, 4. Duo for clarinet and piano, 5. Music notebooks, date 31st October 1928, 6. Music notebooks of series, 7. Complete serial works, 8. Unidentified work, and from 9 till 13th, different folders of serialism. In fact, what we have in this box is the work that Gerard made in Vienna and Berlin from 1923 until 1928, when he was studying with Arnold Schoenberg. Gerard sent a letter to Schoenberg accompanied by 2 scores, 2 apunts and 7 haiku. This letter work sets poems in French by the Catalan poet Josep Maria Junoy, and is somewhat prophetic of Gerard's own situation as it deals with exile. The lyrics of the song include the line, "But in exile, what use is this flower, this insect, this cloud?" Of this work, Joachim Holmes says, "Of all the songs in this beautiful cycle, the one that stands out for me is the last one, which evokes a local folk tune, transmitting exactly the bitterness and tenderness that exile can inspire." The emotion was one that Gerard obviously revisited in his work more than once during the 31 years he lived far from his native land. In this image, we have the note that Paul de Gerard wrote for the first letter that Gerard sent to Schoenberg in 1923. This was Roberto's first letter to Schomberg. He wrote it from his retreat at Masia, short of peasant abbey, near Valls, hence the bond proper. Schomberg answered with a postcard, but obviously the letter had meant something to him. He took it to Berlin, then even to the USA. At her first visit, Trude Schomberg brought it and gave it to Roberto. He was very laureled by this gesture. Thanks to this letter, Gerard was studying 5 years with Arnold Schomberg, and part of the result is the box 16 with the dodecaphonic material. The first folder is a sketch of Sevillana, which is not a serial piece, but there is a series written on the back of the paper. This is why this sketch is into the box 16. The next folder, number 2, is a sketch of Pasacalles and of Von Heute auf Morgen, opus 32, opera in 1 act by Arnold Schomberg, with lyrics in German by Max Blonda, pseudonym of Gertrude Schomberg, wife of the composer. There are sketches with different instrumentations, series with different inversions, and unidentified text. It's important to know that if the manuscript has any kind of series, it's under the cataloging serial in box 16. Doesn't matter if the rest of the piece is tonal. Folder 4 is a very interesting copy of Duo for clarinet and piano, just the clarinet part, but there is a page with sketches of series and of serial harmonic progressions. In the right part of the image, we can see the original series and the first bars of the work. This work is not a complete serial piece, but is significant because here we can find the German for the next serial works. Let's listen the first bars. Folder number 8 is an interesting unidentified work, especially for the way Gerard works with sketches of series. He uses different colors and even the inversal order of the series is made in the inversal order of the numbers. We can see this procedure in the left example. In the right example there is a sketch of series with different colors. In the next image there is a dodecaphonic series descending by perfect fifth in a row. It was probably the way that Schomberg taught to his students in Berlin when he was developing his dodecaphonic composition system. Folders 9 to 13 are a very interesting collection of sketches and of ways to approach serialism. Gerhard develops different pathways to get into serialism, having the control of the music as an structuralist. Let's see some of his procedures. In folder 9, we can see one example where Gerard studied the symmetry of the series and how significant it was for him to find this kind of symmetries. In fact, when he finds one, he uses exclamation marks. Folder number 10 has a good bunch of series sketches. We can see the original series G, E, D sharp, A in 3 tetrachords, and then a reorganization of the series that Gerhard follows with arrows. In the right example, there are intervals that Gerard gets from the series, probably in order to get the harmonic space of the series in his different inversions. In the next image, we can see a dodecaphonic matrix of a series C, E flat, G, A, and so on, split up in two hexachords, the first one going up and the second one going down. It's not a symmetrical series, but the motion of the line is very similar. Folder 11 is a very interesting collection of sketches about series combination, but as we can see in the right image, there are something new written, mathematical operations. And also, he uses clockwise forms to distribute the intervals of the series, that he ordered from 1 to 6, where 1 is C, C sharp, and 6 is C, F sharp. In the next image, we can see more mathematical operations in order to combine the series. These sketches are close to a serial matrix, but Gerard gets the combination of 3 sounds in this image and get the combination of 4 sounds in this other image. As a conclusion, it's evident that Gerard's interest in serialism was really high during the years studying with Schoenberg and also later on when he was living in Barcelona. In his drafts, it's obvious the advanced technique he has in order to find the proper series he was looking for, the harmonic spaces of each series, and how important was for him the structuralism in his approach to composition. The archive Roberto Gerard involves is a real treasure for the history of the decaphonism, because they have the first serial sketches and analyses that traveled outside Germany. Funny thing, the knowledge that Gerard brought to Spain was not enough to create a formal school. Whilst in Barcelona, Gerard composed few pieces because of the need to work on other activities. He had to work in a library and was the principal organizer of some important concerts in the city. Indeed, Gerard's contribution to the musical life of Barcelona was significant, but he couldn't be a professional composer. Also, Gerard had only one student in Spain, Joaquin Homs. Therefore, the collection of the decaphonic sketches and the knowledge Gerard had still remain hidden in these boxes. Many thanks for watching this video, and many thanks to the organizers of the conference Roberto Gerhard, Reappraising a Musical Visionary, University of Huddersfield, June 2021. Dr. Carlos Duque.